35,000 crores approximately. So if you look at it on a yearly basis, they should be paying around 3,500 crores. Remember, we had the management last week with us. They were telling us that now, in fact, they have altered their loans, they have refinanced it, but they said the interest outgo really will not change. That's what they had told us categorically last week itself. And for a company like Bhushan Steel, they have a capacity of close to around 5 million tons. Now, they make an EBITDA of around $120 to around $150 per ton. So it's interesting to see, you know, this not getting more lending power. That's something that it looks like we're trying to minimize the kind of losses over there, because they in fact they have been under pressure in terms of the interest outgo. We were waiting for a long time for them to pay these to make these for that capacity expansion to come on stream as well. And now we have this news that's flashing for you on screen. In fact, it's a CNBC TV 18 exclusive, and Bhushan Steel and Power is in talks with Nomura as well. Let's go across to Anshu Sharma. Anshu, tell us, what are you picking up?
That's right. Sources in the government have told CNBC TV 18 that the government has asked banks to push push the steel companies to cut their debts and push promoters for strategic sales. We also understand from our sources that Bhushan Power and Steel is already in talks with Nomura, and Nomura has given a term sheet to the company for strategic sale in the company. Coming to Bhushan Steel is already undergoing 5/25 debt reduction scheme by RBI, and it intends to sell energy assets of Bhushan Energy and hopes to raise about 3,300 crore rupees from the assets sale. But the company says that there is lack of coal linkage for that particular Bhushan Energy asset. Coming to Electro Steel, sources say that it has a high debt equity ratio of 11 times, and if company fails to infuse additional equity, banks could replace existing promoters. Coming to Visa Steel, again, it is leveraged 44 times and urgently requires strategic investor in the company, and if immediately strategic investor doesn't come in the company, then banks' exposure will not be protected. SR Steel is again looking to sell 3 assets, which includes slurry pipelines. We understand from sources that Paradeep slurry pipeline and a slurry pipeline which was blasted by the Naxals in Chhattisgarh will be up for sale, and the company is looking at raising 11,000 crore rupees by December this year. This is the update from back to you.
Thanks, Anshu, for running us through that. Well, the numbers are scary. The market cap of Bhushan Steel is 1,500 crore. Its debt, as Nigel was telling us, is about 38,000 crore. Its interest outgo in FY15, I was reading your old research, is 2,500 crore, and the company is making losses.
You know, Rima, another important point is you can ask them to sell, but who is there to buy? You know, that's a point. I've been talking to a lot of people, even global investors. Like they talk about Tata Steel, they want to sell some part of their business, but who's the buyer over there? You know, what kind of valuations will you get? If you go to set up a greenfield plant today, you spend around $1,200 per ton. That's all cost inclusive. So it's interesting to see whether or not who comes in to buy and the likes. And I think we should get some clarity in terms of Bhushan Power and Steel in talks with Nomura. I don't think that's related with the listed Bhushan Steel as well, because there are 2 brothers, in fact, and both the businesses are separate. So one is Bhushan Steel, which is the listed entity, while the other one, in fact, is Bhushan Power and Steel, and they're highly leveraged, okay. Rima. So yeah.
No, just can you clarify, you know, what Anshu was talking about was Bhushan Power and Steel.
Correct.
And that you're saying is different from the listed entity?
Correct. So there is Bhushan Steel and Bhushan Power and Steel. To my knowledge, in fact, they're both 2 separate entities. Bhushan Steel is the one that we're talking about. That's the one where we have, that's the listed entity.
Correct.
That's the one that has 3,500 crores. That's the one that's headed by Mr. Neeraj Singhal as well. And that's the one that, in fact, we have been focusing on. Bhushan Power and Steel, that's, I think, part of the same family business, but it's a different business. It's not listed in India. But we have Lata, and Lata, take us through. You're picking up something more?
Yep, actually, you know, this is a story you were also involved in. You know, it involves really Monnet, Odisha Sponge and Bhushan Steel.
Yeah.
Now, Bhushan Steel was trying to buy a stake in Odisha Sponge and ended up buying some 30% stake. And now Monnet also has stake in Odisha Sponge, which they are saying they will sell off and they will get their promoter money so that they get refinancing from the banks. Now, actually, that money which they expect to get from Orissa Sponge is something which Bhushan has to give them. So if Bhushan does not, because Bhushan is buying their stake, so if Bhushan doesn't give the money, the entire chain falls. So you are going to have bad loans with Orissa Sponge, with Monnet Ispat, as well as Bhushan. And you know, you repeatedly get these statements, JSW Energy is going to buy this. You know, even when Bhushan CDR was going on, we got these noises that somebody is buying this asset, that asset. It appears that all these are only headlines created so that banks are given the conviction that they are trying to sell their non-core assets. But we don't see so many non-core assets, and it is very firmly a belief in the street that even JSW is not going to buy the Monnet Ispat's power plant simply because of the arithmetic you put across. There is 4,000 crore of debt, and Monnet Ispat told us that 2,000 crore more is needed to complete that power plant. Why would you buy that power plant for 6,000 crores, even assuming you've written down the equity?
Correct.
So, you know, this entire thing is a problem of lack of buyers as well, as you were discussing. And a second thing which Anshu is, if Anshu is still with us, Anshu had broken the story that they will be hoping to raise the anti-dumping duty by 25% or to 25%. Now, Parliament has only given them permission up to 15%. And at the moment, they've only raised it from 7.5 to 10. You know, the problem is, how can you make the Indian car makers buy expensive steel? Will not there be a car lobby which will say, don't raise it to 25%, I can get cheaper steel from abroad? Why are you making me uneconomical simply because steel is uneconomical? And the worst problem is, even if you raise it to 25%, compared to 3 months ago, prices have fallen 25%. So even with the anti-dumping duty, you are going to be in the same place you were in April. So the whole economics is not going to be protected with taxes. It is not going to get protected with these artificial high prices. And really, there is no white knight around. POSCO has shut its office after waiting for 11 years. If a giant like that thinks that there is no point waiting and plodding, because in any case globally there are no buyers for steel. So you can say go ahead and, you know, look for buyers, but are there buyers? That is the problem. If anything, POSCO, the one big buyer you thought there will be, or ArcelorMittal, or even for that matter Tata Steel, they are looking to sell some of their assets in Chorus.
Correct.
So which is the big buyer who is not looking to sell his own assets?
Correct.
Who is the buyer is the very good question. Well, Anshu is back with us. Anshu, is there anything else you picked up on Monnet Ispat and the other steel plants which are in trouble?
For Monnet Ispat, we understand that they already have joint lenders forum which has approved a scheme for them where 40% of disbursement was given, and that was one of the issues which was taken up in the government and the steel ministry and various other ministries meeting. Now that has been redefined, that bankers have been asked to disburse the rest amount under that forum's scheme which was approved for Monnet Ispat. And also coming to the point where you mentioned that Bhushan Steel was selling majority stake to Monnet Ispat.
No, the other way round. No, the other way round. Monnet Ispat is selling its stake in Orissa Sponge and was hoping that Bhushan will buy. Now, Bhushan will buy only if the bankers give them money, because they don't have their own money. So if Bhushan falls, all three fall. Bhushan falls, Orissa falls, Monnet falls.
Exactly.
If the Bhushan refinancing doesn't happen.
Exactly. They are waiting for a bank to lend them, but seeing at high debt equity ratio, government has clearly given out a signal that till there is strategic sale and equity infusion in these companies, bankers should stay away from lending further. Back to you.
All right, Anshu, thanks so much. And I'll just give our viewers a brief sense of the stock we're talking about. We're talking about Orissa Sponge.